Well, greetings again, and thank you for joining us for this week's installment of Voices of Black Faith Freedom in our series. And I'm Charles Watson, Director of Education at BJC. And I'm excited to welcome our two guests this week, Dr. Timothy T. Boddie, Social Justice Church Engagement Consultant for SOJOURNERS, and former General Secretary of Progressive National Baptist Convention, and his daughter, Maya Boddie, Communications Associate at Advancement Project National Office, and former BJC intern. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Charles. Always good to be with you.
You too.
Thanks, Charles.
All right. So we want you guys to join in as you watch us on Facebook here. We want you to join in the comments below, and also spread the word on Twitter by using the hashtag Black Faith Freedom Voices. And be sure to tag us at BJC on the Hill. So Dr. Boddie, I'm gonna call you Dr. Boddie till it goes back and forth, but
all right, no problem. Hey,
Dr. Boddie. Hey, so PNBC has been one of BJC's supporting bodies for many years. Would you mind giving our audience a brief history of its founding, so get a little background of it?
Well, first of all, thanks again, Charles, for this invitation to join with you. I'm especially grateful to have my beautiful daughter with us today, and I'm really excited about that. She even makes me nervous, so I'll just say that, get that out of the way. At any rate, one of the things about the Progressive National Baptist Convention, which I did serve as General Secretary, as you shared, for nearly 4 years, there, and the Progressive National Baptist Convention. What's so interesting about it is that, when I say that I'm Baptist, people usually ask me, yeah, what does that mean? Are you Southern Baptist? Are you, and usually they start with Southern Baptist and not recognizing the distinctions in Baptistdom. At any rate, most of the Black Baptist conventions, and there are several, come out of the National Baptist Convention USA, which was actually started in the 19th century. The Progressive National Baptist Convention is in that same tradition. But as my uncle, Dr. Charles Boddie, has said, Baptists have a strange way of doing math. They multiply by dividing. And this is exactly what happened in 1961 at the height of the civil rights movement, when the leadership of the National Baptist Convention did not want to turn a loose leadership. And so several of the members of the convention also had more of a flavor for civil rights and for a push for direct, nonviolent, direct action. This was not the method being advanced by the National Baptist Convention during those years in the 1940s and 50s. So several of those members came out of the National Baptist Convention, and actually there was a big fight over three things: over tenure in office, over a unifying giving program, and over kingdom priorities, one of which was religious liberty and religious freedom. So 33 pastors called together by the Reverend Dr. L. Venture Booth out of Cincinnati, Ohio, came together at the Zion Baptist Church there in Cincinnati in 1961 in the fall, and formed what was really a movement. It was a movement called the Progressive Baptists, and they formed a movement that would later become the Progressive National Baptist Convention. And today, of course, over those three things, it is the denominational home, it became the denominational home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was not contrary to popular belief, was not one of the founding members of Progressive. He was founded, he was a little busy during those years. But he did become the speaker at every convention of the every convening of the convention from 1964 until his murder in 1968. And let me just share this. Dr. Gardner Taylor, who's considered the dean of Black Baptist preachers, the late great Dr. Gardner Calvin Taylor, pastor of the Concord Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York, said this. He was one of the presidents of the convention. He was the president when Dr. King was killed. Here's what he said, and I wanted to capture this specifically. In his valedictory address, he said these words: "As we remember Dr. Martin King's trials and triumphs, we remember our part in them. Progressive Baptists may take justifiable pride in the unassailable fact, which must now forever be true, that when he had no spiritual denominational home among Black Baptists, cast out from the house of his fathers, the National Baptist Convention, Progressive Baptist gave him a Black Baptist denominational residence. You provided him with an address in the community of Black Baptists. Let angels record that truth, and let succeeding generations bring their gratitude to your tent door."
Wow. Thank you, T. I mean, that history just speaks of religious freedom. I mean, sounds like PNBC was birthed out of, having the mindset that you are free to think different, even from your other, Black colleagues and stuff, and say, you know what, National Baptist Convention USA, thank you for what you've done, but we have the freedom and religious freedom to think different and move on and start something else. And that sounds more Baptist than anything I've heard in a while.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's a beautiful thing. So with that backdrop, I want to bring Maya into the conversation with it and say, how would you define faith freedom or religious liberty in the context of the Black community?
Well, also really excited to be here with my dad. And so thank you for that. So I personally didn't know what faith freedom and religious liberty meant really, or didn't use that language until I was an intern with BJC in 2016. But I realized once I did understand what religious liberty is that in the context of the Black community, that's something we've been practicing forever. And I'm pretty sure, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think from my friends, from the Black folks that I know, people don't use the term faith freedom or religious liberty, but should understand somehow, some way that, we have been practicing, just like with everything else, with food, with music, with, and with our God, we have been making things our own since forever. And I do want to say this, watching your conversations with Mandisa and Dr. Lamar, one thing that I think came up in both conversations was one of the things that Black folks tend to do to one another and have been doing is, the question that came up, why would you want to, oppress someone's ability to freely believe whatever they want or, worship however they want when when we have been an oppressed people. And I think that when it comes to religious liberty for Black folks, it's going to be about in the future unlearning, what has been ingrained and just continuously shaping our own freedom. That makes sense.
See, I want to mine just took us someplace that, I have to jump into the next question, and then I'll come back around to you to try to define it for yourself. But I think, you kind of hit on the fact that Black people are not monolithic, and they therefore don't have the same one faith freedom, or they don't have the same faith tradition. And how do we deal with faith freedom when during your time, T, having a faith tradition was the norm, and now for your generation, Maya, many have left the church. How do we communicate the importance of faith freedom through that generational gap? Either one of you guys can go first if you want to here.
Just a quick thought while it's in my mind is, sure, when you say how do we communicate that, I was telling my dad last night, I think communicate is the word. Like, yeah, we have to communicate with each other intergenerationally. We have to talk about it, instead of like, there have been certain situations where I've heard my friends say, my dad just randomly called me and asked, why I didn't why I don't do online church anymore, or why am I not going to church? And a lot of times it'll just be a question, like assuming that, their children or grandchildren are out here being heathens and want to do whatever they want to do, instead of, asking, what is it, especially if they were raised in the church, what happened? What is the disconnect? So just starting those conversations, and then when you get the answer, accepting the answer for what it is and trying to compromise on something, because if not, there's not going to be the future of the Black church that we would like to see. It's just going to be history. And with that, I feel like I just kind of went off on a tangent, so I'll let my dad talk.
No, it's okay. No, you didn't.
That's great.
No, you led me to what I wanted to share about going back to your comment about Mandisa. For your viewers who may not be familiar with her, or didn't get a chance to see her interview last week, she is the founder of the Black Non-Believers. And for someone of my generation, that I didn't know there were any Black non-believers to that extent. And I listened to her interview. She was brilliant. She was accessible, and I disagreed with almost everything she said. But I will fight for her right to say it. And I will fight for her right to believe what she believes. And that's really what, at the root, what faith freedom is about. Clearly, we are not a monolith. And Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I love the way BJC has picked up on that quote and modified it to say that a threat to your religious liberty is a threat to my religious liberty. And if I don't have the right to be, if I don't have the right to believe or not believe what I believe or not believe, then someone else can take, I will be the next religion, if you will, on the chopping block. And so, which I have to say this about that, Charles. I hope our viewers have been watching the Black church and our "This is our story, this is our song." And in many ways, we're learning together what our story is. Much of our story is rooted in faith, but the various strains of faith that have come together have been just tremendously remarkable, and something that I hope everyone gets a chance to see on PBS by the great Dr. Henry Louis Gates and his team of folks who put that together.
Yeah, we were thinking about putting this conversation together. Didn't know it was going to work out that was going to air the night before, and people would be able to do that. And it brought a question that I didn't even give you guys. So I hope this will land where it's supposed to land. But, I thought about that PBS special last night, and they were talking about the Great Migration of, the Black people that was coming from the South headed up north to say, there are job openings for you. And the reason that those job openings were there was because World War I, things were going on. They weren't able to get the European influx of people. So there was like, you know what? There's laborers in the South. So people came up from the South, but then you had your Black people in the South that met with the Black churches in the North, and things were different. The way you practice church was different from each other. And so I see those same kind of elements still going on. The migration did it back then, but it seems like the generation is doing it now from the Gap. And so I want to ask you, what, and you deal in communications, is there a way that social media can close that gap? Is there a way that new technology can close that gap, or is it just, I won't say old fashioned, sitting in front of each other doing that? What any suggestions for us in that, and to practice faith freedom through the generations?
That's a good question. Because we're on social media. Funny story. I finally decided to participate in Lent, and I'm off of social media for 40 days, and it might kill me. But so, is there a way? Especially during this pandemic, when pastors have been forced to communicate with their congregation online, and churches have had to learn how to utilize social media. At the same time, racial justice uprisings are happening, and activism is cool, and folks are caring about Black lives to some extent. This is the perfect time to align how you worship, how your church operates, and with the issues at hand, the issues that with social and racial justice issues. And while I might not have, the suggestions on how exactly to do that via social media, in the word, in the youth conversations that are being had, actually, because there's so many Instagram lives and Facebook lives. Just make sure you are centering folks who are the future of the church, who how in all these conversations that are being had. I'm not saying don't have older folks in these conversations. Bring folks from different generations together to discuss these issues, and people will see that, and I think that's a perfect way to enlarge or to heighten and increase participation, and bring folks, even get folks to consider, I might have to join this church. I might have to tithe,
Go ahead, T.
Let me just say, she mentioned this wonderful thing about how the church comes in. It led me to believe something, remember something that she had mentioned earlier about not having the language of religious liberty to talk about it in that way. And in my generation, we had the language, but it was all co-opted or hijacked by white evangelicals. And when we heard the term religious liberty, it was a term that meant I'm free to be Christian, and you're not free to do anything but be Christian either. And so that's really what was contradictory to me growing up. Every time I heard that term, religious liberty, it meant prayer in the schools, and we have to put prayer back in the schools, and we have to make sure that and we have to make sure that the Ten Commandments is part of our in the schools as well, and which is all good. But we know as a people, we knew that prayer was going to be in the schools. As long as there were tests, prayer was going to be in the schools. As long as there were essays and research papers, prayer was in the schools. So we didn't have that, but that wasn't our fight. So religious liberty for us was a different issue. And when I was exposed finally to Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty, it really helped me understand that religious liberty is much more than that. That it's religious liberty for all, and not just for Christians.
I tell you, it sounds like all of us have somewhat of the same story, because I feel like even being at the BJC 8 years, I remember the first time I heard about BJC, I kept asking, at that time, Holly Holman, I was like, wait a minute, I've been Baptist all my life. I never heard about you. What do you mean you stand for faith freedom of all people? And I realized as I was asking her those questions, I had been doing that in the Black church for a long time. We just didn't use that language.
That language, right?
And that was great what you were saying about it, T. But then Maya, I put you on the spot with that question, but you did excellent job of thinking about that in a way that I haven't. This is a prime opportunity for the church or people of faith, if they want to actually get engaged with the younger generation. You have to care about more than just that structure that you attend each Sunday. You gave us an opportunity to say, reach out in that way. It feels like the younger generation is saying, show me. I don't want to hear about it. Show me.
That's pretty much it. Like, just show that you care about people, because that's the thing too. I feel like those who, and I again cannot speak for everybody, but I just think that in talking to my friends, it seems that we really just want our religion, what our belief, to be steeped in love and compassion for people, which is what all, every major religion is technically rooted in. But that's not what we've seen. You hear that the term church hurt is a real thing. Like, folks have been continuously hurt by the church if they're doing something that, I guess the church mother or whatever didn't approve of. But just show that you have compassion and love for every single human on this planet, because that's just not something that's been shown. You know that, I know that, and I don't think it's that difficult to prove. And not just putting on a show either, but so I'm not sure how you can, if you're actually not the greatest person and really don't like, people and don't have love for people, it's going to be hard to fake it. But that's essentially what it's going to take, from my perspective.
I tell you, that PBS special, I know we're here at BJC, but I tell people that haven't taken the time to watch the Black Church PBS special. We keep bringing it up, but it's a part of this faith freedom context, because they talk about the divisions and the times where the Black church, and we're talking about all of the Black church, not just Baptist, Presbyterian, anybody of that time, didn't take up the mantle to defend every aspect in every community in the Black. So if you're not going to defend all of us, you can't just pick your segments of us to defend. Dr. Boddie, one last question to put you on the spot here, like I put mine on the spot, but I know you kind of like, one of the things that was talked about, and I think I might have mentioned it in the first conversation with Reverend Lamar, but also was mentioned last night in the PBS special, was the idea of Black power and liberation theology coming together, and Dr. James Cone being able to bring those words together and those power things together. Is there something we can learn from that? And you learned back then, is there something we can bring to the now from that conversation? Where did we drop that? Because I feel like that was the place where we should be and should be building upon, and then we got kind of distracted from it? Is there something we can still build upon with that?
Well, two things I would say. One is this notion that uh, Raphael Warnock, the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, and now the senator from Georgia, the first black senator from the state of Georgia, and my Morehouse brother, by the way, I would have to say, in his book, the Divided Mind of the Black Church, um, reminds us that the divided mind of the church is that the black church was born fighting for freedom. And we see that played out in we see that played out in the PBS special. We see that played out certainly in his book. And the divided mind really is this white evangelical notion of piety, personal piety on the one hand, and this idea of protest in the Black church that's also part of our experience, being a part of that experience, and that those two are not mutually exclusive, that there is this sense of protest and fight. And the other thing that I would add to that is what Michael Eric Dyson said in the PBS special last night, if I can recreate that moment, where he said that the Baptists, that the Black church used Christianity, or used the tenets of Christianity to teach and preach justice, as opposed to using the tenets of Christianity to teach just us, if you will, those things that are just about being white supremacy in America. And so, to that extent, I would say that there's a lot that we can learn from that, and there's a lot we can learn from this generation who has been so open, who has taught me so much. I'm grateful that I skipped a generation, and that my children are millennials. A lot of my folks, a lot of people my age have kids who are actually Gen Xers. But because my wife and I are baby boomers, I'll speak for myself. I'm a baby boomer, and that the millennials have this really sense of openness. And I love what she said about this idea of the faith being rooted in love, and it's not just that syrupy romantic love that we all want to be a part of, but it's that unconditional love, that the love of Jesus Christ that is demonstrated through the burial, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and not only for our salvation, but also for our liberation.
Right. So I have to get this last question in, if you mind. I'm gonna give you the last word on this. T, you talked about your generation. I feel that I'm the next generation, and then Maya is actually, the generation now, and that's just how the numbers work out. But we know it's fluid throughout the Black church and the Black family. It's a fluidness through all of that.
Yeah.
But Maya, with answering this question, what do you think America can learn about faith freedom from your generation? I know you've touched on the things that that mean the most to you, but what can the grand scheme of America learn about faith freedom in your generation?
I think that many of us walk in one of the other things that Mandisa raised. I really appreciated her conversation. Even though I'm not an atheist, truly a Baptist girl through and through, and so that speaks volumes. But she touched on, I don't care what you believe until what you believe is hurting other people. And I know that's kind of in the same vein as, you know, the love I was talking about, but in hurting other people is, you know, a lot of millennials care about real issues that impact us. Like we are super political, you know, we're involved. The way these high school and college students are, involving themselves in, you know, racial, social, economic justice issues, you know, the church is not separate from that. Like that's just the bottom line. I think, you know, I even grew up, you know, hearing that church shouldn't be political, or like Jesus isn't political, you know, like touching on that. And like that's just not true. And so understanding that we align our issues and our faith, whatever it is that we believe, aligns with like is our lives. Like our lives are political, and therefore like our faith is political, and like depends on like it's life and death. Like they depend on our lives. Like, and I feel like I'm kind of talking over myself now, but I hope that that translated to.
I think it did well, and it works for who we are as BJC, being able to say no, these things touch all of our lives, and it doesn't matter what faith you are. You're a human being, and you have the same rights as I have. And if I want, sort of going back what T said,
and I think when Americans realize that, then it will be a better, safer world for all people.
I'll end it right there. So thankful for knowing both of you, and so thankful for your time today. It's been great. I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and hopefully we can do some things like this again. For our Facebook audience that were a part of this, please go back and view the other two that we had with Reverend Lamar and also with Mandisa Thomas. I think we've mentioned the PBS special, almost like we're a part of it, but it's us, and that's why we're mentioning it. But we definitely want you to be back with us next week, as I'll be talking to PJ Andrews, Race Discourse Officer for the Baha'is of the United States, and he'll be answering the question, what does faith freedom mean for minority religions in America? All right, so this conversation will be up on our YouTube channel, so we hope that you will go back and send this out to other people. Once again, thank you, T, and thank you, Maya, for being a part of BJC's family, but also for the beautiful family that you guys are.
Thank you, Charles.
To you guys.
God
we
bless you.
appreciate it.
Give our best to all the folks at BJC.
Will do.